America, my name is Osei-Frimpong, and let me tell you, white women have been delivering for Donald Trump ever since his own mama. Now, think about 2016 when Hillary Clinton's team wanted Donald Trump. They wanted and angled for Donald Trump to be the GOP nominee because they thought he was going to be beatable. And then what did white women do? They voted for Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton. Then we go to those same white women tarred and drove away other people by tarring anybody who supported Bernie Sanders as a Bernie bro. Then, all their sisters, who they wouldn't talk poorly against, voted for Donald Trump. All right? Now, to be clear, we don't say Bernie bros have internalized a working class identity or somehow confused about their interest. No, we just thought that they were bad people. But when the white women vote for Trump, they are internalized misogyny or voting against their interest. I just don't think we understand the interests of white women. I think those white women know exactly what their interests are, and their interest lies with their fathers and their sisters, their brothers and their sons, and the inheritance lines, and all the people who protect them, which are the white strong men that they vote for. I don't think they're stupid. So white women delivered for Trump in 2016. They delivered for Trump when they delivered him in 46 or whenever he was born. And they delivered for him in 2024. They did it in two ways. And this is fascinating and why I did this video, because they didn't just deliver it to him by voting for him. They delivered Trump the election by screwing up the Democratic Party, by making the Democratic Party the party of abortion only. The party of abortion and liberal feminism. So go ahead, drive away everyone except college-educated white women. Who drive away anyone who cares about jobs. Drive away anyone who cares about organized labor in a meaningful way. Drive away anyone who cares about production and what that means for the economy and services. And just keep the liberal feminists and the abortion on demand folks. Make that the Democratic agenda in a way that overwhelms every other concern and relegates that to a tertiary concern. And then put that against Trump, who then gets to run on everything else. Don't forget, Trump, by the end of the campaign, ended up to be the anti-war candidate, which is absurd. But because, white women had abortion on the brain, it left all of this room for Trump to be the anti-war candidate while we're welcoming the Cheneys who got us into the Iraq war. So this is what happens. So what you have is white women screwing up the Democratic Party and then voting for the Republican Party. And then all of that's fine. All of that's fine. They get to do what they want to do, but they have the audacity, the nerve to blame everybody else. Oh, it's racism. Oh, it's misogyny. No, it's you people. It's you people. It's you people in your inability to learn from your own mistakes and your inability to be held accountable. Being in coalition partners with you at a political level is like running the nation with a 6-year-old. You don't take accountability. It's your commitment. The dubious commitments of professional class white womanhood are just ridiculous. Dubious commitments of white womanhood are just absurd. You have no business. I was okay with everything else until you have the audacity to blame men for this election. You screwed up the Democratic Party by making it the party of single issue abortion, and picking a candidate who really can't talk convincingly about anything else, but she could talk convincingly about abortion. You could see that she believed in it. She couldn't really talk convincingly about jobs. She couldn't really talk convincingly about production and work, and she was a war hawk. She gave every sense that she's going to get us into more wars and supply any other bad person who wants to get us into wars. All right, so we can't work with white women in the Democratic Party because they're not the greatest at sharing power and they just can't take accountability. And, I've had people say, Army, you just hate women. No, well, I hate womanhood. I think it's formed as a racial identity in the United States. Womanhood is actually a racial identity in the United States that insulates women from accountability and responsibility because as a part of the racial project in the United States, we needed a perfect victim. Someone who needed to always be protected from, the black man or the racialized other. And so that formed our kind of colonial womanhood, our ideas of womanhood, and it also justified police and all of this other, kind of violent policing measures and disciplining measures because we needed a perfect victim. And it went hand in hand with women's liberation because once that perfect victim was allowed into society, we not only needed to protect the home from the racialized other, we now need to protect society from the racialized other. So it was very useful to have this useless, unaccountable figure running around society, and it was very useful for the project of policing racialized others in society. So, if you want more of this, you can read Newman's book, Louise Newman, White Women's Rights. It's kind of the origin of feminism in America. But the Man Not is good on this. Tommy Curry's book. Do I have it here? Yeah, I do. I always show Tommy Curry's. The Man Not. Here we go. That's good. But Newman's book. And if you don't trust anything written by a black man, you need to hear it from a woman. Newman, I want to say her name is Mary Louise Newman. But this is white women's rights. But this is well-trod territory. Anyone? Newman. The racial origins of feminism. Yeah, so once you get, and you'll see this in Gilman too, Charlotte Gilman, who's actually a pretty good thinker. A lot of these white eugenicists are pretty good thinkers, but who, ties her feminism to the racial project. And so it's not just that conservative womanhood is tied to like all of these bad policies. It's liberal womanhood is also tied to some of these dicey policies because now we need to protect society while still not, as a matter of gender identity, not holding women accountable. This is why we have such a hard time holding American women accountable in the United States. And it's not the case everywhere. Also, when people from other places come to the United States, this is why often those women are more serious people. Because part of the culture of womanhood in the United States is a holdover of this colonialism that makes it impossible to hold them accountable because their colonial identity was designed for the political project of being perfect victims. But now when you put them in public facing offices, it ends up screwing up the entire business of the office. So pretty much they've done to the Democratic Party what they did to public education. We can't fix public education right now because it's just shot through with white women and nobody can hold them accountable for anything. And so we just let them screw up public education. Become a make work job for midwit white women. So now, but the Democratic Party, we couldn't say no, we actually have to talk about jobs. We have to talk about, and in a serious and more substantive way. We can't just talk about abortion. We can't be a single issue abortion party. And if you're a single issue abortion voter, then you need to learn some other things before we give you both prominence in the party leadership or or we call you a responsible human, a responsible coalition partner. We didn't do that. And so the Democratic Party became the party of abortion, which was good for everything short of a victory. It's everything short. And I say this as a pro-choice guy. I am a pro-choice guy. I have respect for the pro-life people, but like myself, I'm a pro-choice guy. But I am anti-white women hood as a cultural formation. Nothing to do with their biology or anything like that. It's a cultural formation. Honestly, the biggest what if I have in politics is what if when Bernie Sanders asked Elizabeth Warren in 2015, and 2015 I was a huge Elizabeth Warren fan, thought she was great, I read her book, which is, okay, good, bad, but like I thought, yeah, this is someone I can work with. This is before she refused to endorse Bernie because Bernie was running against Hillary Clinton. And this is before Bernie announced himself because he wanted Elizabeth Warren to run because he supports women. And Elizabeth Warren said no because Hillary Clinton was running. So the Sisterhood screwed us out of a better candidate. Right? So Bernie runs, makes the contemporary left, not whole cloth. There was the Occupy Wall Street movement, but he does a lot of work for the contemporary left and builds up the progressive movement, a multi-gendered progressive movement, and then gets tarred for the rest of the time as a misogynist whose Bernie bros hate women. And then those people get pushed out of the Democratic Party and the most obnoxious faction of the Democratic Party takes over. And now you have those as single issue abortion voters who the most coddled demographic in the world. And they feel a lot because they've been so coddled. They don't have to worry about jobs or being marched into Russian bullets by Zelensky or anything else. And so abortion's their number one issue because the way they've grown up, they've been coddled from all other issues. And you can say, it's hard work being a woman. Yeah, we only got credit cards, 20 years ago or 30 in the 80s, 30 years ago. Do you understand why that is? It's not because the world hated women. Well, first of all, nobody got credit cards. Nobody had credit cards. Credit cards were selected for like a certain class of white jerk. Nobody else had credit. Black people, we did not have credit. Nobody had credit. All right. So a certain class of white jerk had credit. But one of the virtues of that certain class of white jerk is that if they didn't pay, you could squeeze them for money. You know who you can't squeeze for money? Women, white women. You can't squeeze them for money. We don't jail white women. We don't put them in jail. Like couldn't make them work. We couldn't punish them. And so it's not as if credit card companies didn't want to make money. It's that credit card companies knew that they could not collect debt from white women. Or if you tried to, you'd end up collecting it from their father or their brother. So you just made them co-sign at the beginning, the father, the brother, so you didn't have to worry about trying to collect, which was culturally verboten from white women. So this lack of accountability and responsibility for their own actions is deep and pervasive. It's not just political. It works in the civil society. And this is especially interesting now because we know that white women hold the most amount of commercial purchases and commercial debts in the United States. So there's that. We just have a hard time holding them accountable. We have a hard time holding them accountable because of how we have formed womanhood. We didn't have to form womanhood this way. It was just a very useful for our racial project. Right? So if you have a problem with the argument, you should go back and watch this video in its entirety because I go over the whole thing and it's just the truth. And so I didn't get mad at white women screwing up the Democratic Party and then voting for Trump. They screwed up the Democratic Party by making it the single issue abortion party. And then they voted for Trump because they voted 52% for Trump. And they are the largest voting demographic in the nation, which means that what they decide to vote for is like what we talk about. They're good at filling out some paperwork. So they vote more than white men. Since 1980, that's been the case. It's just simply the case. It's very easy to verify. Since 1980, white women have been the biggest voting demographic in the nation. They show up, they live longer, they vote. And they vote conservative. And they did vote conservative this time. And so they screwed up because of their numbers and access to daddy's money. they screwed up the Democratic Party, and because of their numbers and access to daddy's money, they voted for the Republicans. And everybody else is just like screwed trying to figure out how to deal with the elephant in the room, which are like the inability to hold white women accountable. Now, we talk about Trump as being this wild card, and Bush a little bit, Bush too, being a bull in the china shop, and Trump being this wild card that you don't really know what they're going to do and you can't really stop them from doing anything. That's the Democratic Party under the sway of like coddled white feminists. Like we can't hold them accountable. They don't take any responsibility for anything, but yet they demand to be in control of everything. And everybody else just has to let them screw it up. It's unfortunate, but the things we talk about in America are the things that white women were willing to fight other white women about. There are white women abortion fans, and then there are white women pro-life people, and so that means it's going to be a political issue. So that's just where we are. White women did it, and they're pointing their finger at every single other body else. And people say, what about the 15 million that didn't show up? Well, they're alienated. They don't have any real power over the content of the platform. So they just didn't show up. They don't have like, do you understand? I don't think white women understand what it's like when I go into any sort of serious meeting or political gathering and it's just a bunch of white women. That means like nothing's really going to be said or done. That it means you're not allowed to hurt anybody's feelings anywhere in the room. And it's just impossible to actually get real work done. It's impossible to get any real work done or to talk about anything that matters because of how we formed white womanhood. Right? It's funny because I'm going to do a video after this. I'm going to shut this video off and then do a different video on Amy Chua's book, The Battle Hymn of the Tiger Mother, which is both interesting and wrong and fascinating ways, but it's a completely different variety of womanhood that Amy Chua brings, which is very much womanhood, also terrifying in a different way, but I'll talk about that in a different video. So white women delivered the presidency for Trump. And honestly, there's a kind of irony in how they did it because the charge that pro-life Republicans in the United States make against white women is that they don't take responsibilities for, like, you know, opening their legs and having sex and creating a life. And what I'm saying is that they also don't take responsibility for creating a Trump presidency. So this fundamental inability to take responsibility like metastasizes through like everything they touch. This fundamental inability to take responsibility metastasizes through everything they touch. And you know, they're shrapnel to white tears, right? So, and that's the world we live in right now. So you need someone like me talking tough to white women. By the way, if you appreciate what I'm doing, which I think you should, because, you know, I'm going to lose a lot of fans and opportunities because of my truth. Go ahead and go to www.funkyacademic.com and kick in $5, $15, or $50 a month. And I'll keep trying to make your life a little bit clearer, because now before you saw this video, you might have been a little bit confused about some of the institutions in your life and how it's hard to hold white women accountable. And since white womanhood in the United States is the dominant form of womanhood, black women, and I say that I try to pick on black women last, when they aspire to be women, they aspire to a quality of white womanhood. So it's a culture, it's a class aspiration. They want that soft life, right? It's a class aspiration. And like that gender aspiration is a class and racialized aspiration, and we need to think of it as such. So once again, white women delivered for Trump. They delivered for him first when they delivered him, which is fine. They delivered for him when Hillary Clinton decided that we want Trump to be the nominee in 2016 because he's easily beat. They delivered for him the GOP nomination. Then they delivered the election for him by voting for him. And then they delivered and then they screwed up the Democratic Party by delivering the election for Hillary Clinton and making it the case that Elizabeth Warren wouldn't run, because Elizabeth Warren wouldn't run against Hillary Clinton because of the Sisterhood. And in 2015, Elizabeth Warren would have won. It would have been fantastic. Bernie asked Warren in 2015 to run, and she should have just said yes. So, then they delivered the election to Trump in 2024 by screwing up the Democratic Party by making it a single issue abortion party and shunting everyone else who cares about everything else over to the Republicans. And then they voted for the Republicans because it turns out those other things matter. And instead of actually holding other white women accountable, and I'm very important, I don't call women females. Female is a biological designation. Women is a cultural designation. And the quality of womanhood I'm talking about right now is very much a cultural phenomenon. And instead of holding those other white women accountable for voting for Trump and screwing up the Democratic priorities, they point their fingers at everyone else. Everyone else. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's like being a coalition partner with 6-year-olds. It's it's fascinating how they could do all parts of the problem and still find a way to blame other people. Like, you're the biggest voting bloc in the nation. Anyway, thank you for your time. If you appreciate what I'm doing, go ahead and donate to www.funkyacademic.com. $5, $15, or $50 a month. All right. I'm going to be back talking about Amy Chua's book. Fascinating book for different reasons. Send this video to your friends and watch this in your Sunday school, in your book club, or whatever, because it's just the truth. White women need to do better. White women need to do better. They need to and understand that this lack of accountability is deep. It's a fundamental, and it's racialized for the reasons that I talked about in this video. It's how we created the identity to be the perfect victim. But now that they're in public office, we can't hold any of those offices accountable because of that gender identity. All right, take care.